What is going on, gamers? Welcome in. We are doing something fun today. I wanted to take a quick minute to say special shout out to Dark Lord. Dark Lord is part of a very small upper tier of my Patreon where they are able to request full soundtracks, either 40 tracks or a max of 4 hours. And in this particular case, this month, Dark Lord chose the Evolve soundtrack from the game Evolve, which you may or may not know because it no longer exists. Or does it exist? I don't know. No one ever talks about Evolve anymore. Isometric shooter, you know the one. In any case, I'm really excited. We're going to be going through much of this and be doing some analysis of about 5 or so tracks, but mostly just listening with some commentary in between. If you yourself would like to submit an entire soundtrack or 40 tracks or up to 4 hours of one, there is one more spot in that Patreon tier. It's priced appropriately, I think, for the time required. It's up to you. Just for my own workload, it's not very big just because, 40 tracks or 4 hours max is substantial. Next week, we will be taking a look at the soundtrack for Thymesia. Thymesia will be happening next Monday, I believe, or at some point next week. I'll let you know a time for that. So anyway, in that case, let's dive straight in. Let me just look at which ones you want to deep dives on. Servers have been down for a while. Okay. Word. Let's get into it. So this is first track. It's called Learn to Evolve. And this is, of course, by Jason Graves. Jason has worked on Moss 1 and 2, Dead Space, many games. No Rest for the Wicked is a newer one from Moon Studios, a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, very, very excited to take a listen to this. Let's do it. Learn to Evolve. So I'll stop a couple tracks in this, a couple times in this track, and there's about 5 tracks that I'll stop and start in. This one's really interesting to me because as it starts, there's this inherent real buildup. Now we're a minute into the piece, and we've got this motif that plays pretty sparsely. Piada, pia, piada, pia. Right? That's the motif that occurs. And I think what's interesting is that it's really like a thing of like, what the hell is about to happen, right? There's a sense in that of dread, of fear, of concern, of worry, of any other adjective describing things related to fear. And I think that really is present in this particular section of the OST. There's tons of space. Yada, blah, 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 blah. Right? So it doesn't smack you in the face. In fact, it's very like, what's around the corner? What's going on? And I think like choosing to use a very sparse melody is really evocative of that feeling of fear, of concern, of stress. You know what I mean? I'll point out another section here in a bit. Also, there's some interesting... oh, never mind. It shifts. The hits here are cool. Thump thump, thump thump, thump thump, thump thump, thump ticka thump. Yeah, so it's cool because that motif really ends up being the feeling of like the monsters theme. You know, it really ends up being like the sense of dread that one feels knowing that the monster is approaching, kind of like out in the distance somewhere. It's dark and what have you. And I think that the percussion hitting really hard, because these monsters were quite bigger than the other player characters. You really get the sense that like there's a sort of like hunting or prey, a be hunted sound quality in that, which I think really, I think is delivered quite well. There's obviously a sense of stress. The percussion here, it's a very short rhythm. Bum, 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 bum. So that thing is really cool because of how short and sweet it is. It delivers a feeling of stress. It delivers on that feeling of like, holy shit, what do we do? You know what I mean? And I think like that is persistent throughout this piece. And then the space is interesting because the space is almost like, where is the monster going to come from, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? And this is really more tension here. It almost feels like a heartbeat. But the pulsation there is really cool, isn't it? Really feels like you're up against really bad odds here. There's definitely an oppressive quality to it. So it's got horror elements, but it's not necessarily horror per se. You know, there's a sound in it of motivation, of focus, of what have you, right? Rather than like it's not in your face, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's cool. All right, we'll do some more analysis with Here We Go, which I assume is a prep track. Let's check it out. Yeah, we do get some consistent sort of synth sound here, which is cool. Realistically, it's more melodic. It's more ambient than melodic. Again, dialing up on the synth there is fun. We have an increase in tempo here. Oh, it pulls back. See, but that's like a natural build. So, you know what's interesting? This music is very amorphous. There's nothing to latch onto. The percussion is really the dominant force in it. And what it does is it has us moving forward, but without like the comfort of having a melody. And so the percussion there and the pickup in tempo, I thought it was going to keep going for a massive buildup, but actually what we do is we pull back. And I mean, I think like a title like Here We Go or a track like Here We Go, its intention is to start this thing up, to start us moving in a direction, to get us, off our feet and what have you. Like this is really, it's interesting how the absence of melody makes it a bit more stressful. Now there is forward momentum that we can attach to, mostly in the percussion, but I find that it's really, really kind of nebulous. And on top of that, the synth sound I think is really good at creating a sense of distress. Interestingly enough, this little corner ends up sounding like an alarm. Blah, blah, blah. It's done really well. I think one of the things that it really is coming to mind is the fact that like a soundtrack like this, like it's amazing how many soundtracks just get sort of buried. And whether it's because the game dies or, whatever, like it kind of time just does its thing. Like there's a certain interesting thing that like Jason Graves is no small potato when it comes to the compositional world of video game music. But I find it kind of interesting that like no one talks about Evolve's soundtrack because it doesn't necessarily have the whatever, right? It's really interesting how what do people look for in a soundtrack, and why are certain soundtracks like this one basically, forgotten or not like paid attention to anymore? And it's kind of sad because I think like, and maybe it is because there's like necessarily a lack of melody, right? But I think that's the thing that's so evocative of this is that the lack of melody creates the tension, right? And so while the tracks may blur together and they may not necessarily be like memorable, they, whatever that even means, they still provide a sense of heightened intensity, which can really fit specific parameters extremely well. Now, the problem with this soundtrack is that the parameters are not able to be experienced due to the game not really, not being in service anymore. So there's an issue there, but it's kind of a shame that if you don't actively seek out Evolve's soundtrack for one reason or another, due to having played it or due to whatever, you would not actually experience it. And regardless of whether or not I like the soundtrack or if the soundtrack's good or what even good means, it's a disappointment that these things kind of, because of the nature of releases and the game design and all that other stuff, things are getting left by the wayside, which is something I'm thinking about as we listen to this, because when have I ever thought of the Evolve soundtrack? Never. Now, obviously this has been requested by Dark Lord, but even still, like, it's a bummer that certain soundtracks are composed well, made well. Whether or not they appeal to you doesn't really matter, but the fact that matters that they kind of just disappear because people are not playing the games, And something really interesting that I've sort of started to take more notice of in my own listenings to these pieces, in and out of context, depending on the game and so on and so forth, is the idea that essentially not everything needs melody in order to be really good or really successful. In fact, here, what I think this track is really good at is the fact that near this middle back half, we have a lot of percussion and rhythm that moves. Now I wouldn't say percussion, but rhythm that moves us forward. And rhythm can be incredibly useful. Now, every piece of music, melodic music, ambient music, it all has rhythm, of course, but there's a certain kind of propulsion that takes over in a piece like this where we feel the the anticipation of the circumstances. And in this particular track, I thought that was done extremely well. So the next couple tracks, I'll probably just listen, a couple little counterpoint, something to be thrown out or said, but in general, I won't be analyzing them per se. This is Welcome to Your New Job. Can you make melody out of percussion? I mean, it depends on the percussion. Timpani you can actually tune. Timpani actually has pitch, but in general, well, and so do like cymbals. They have pitch, but marimba has pitch. Xylophones have pitch. Those are considered percussion instruments. But in general, you can't really make melody out of percussion. Percussion's real job is to be the rhythmic force behind a piece. In general, that's what we see, at least in like, depending on the instrument choices. I mean, there are plenty of percussion instruments, including the piano, believe it or not, which is a percussion instrument because you hit the hammers, you hit the keys. So yes, you can make melody out of percussion, but if you're talking like your standard, standard like sort of drums or drum sets, you think of a standard percussion drum set like with the cymbals and the snare drum and stuff. Not really. Those are really rhythmic driving forces over melodic driving forces. Electronic music, you could, yes. I think so, anyway. So prime examples right there. I mean, like, not to stop in a piece that you don't want me to stop at Dark Lord, but just to highlight it. That is rhythmic. Rhythmic propulsion being the predominant source there. But on top of that, there is a significant amount of melody in there. That's melody. Right, so that's percussive and rhythmic, but it's also melodic in this particular case because it's a electronic instrument. It's electronic music synthesized. No, I haven't talked about Crisis music on the channel. Like that is almost entirely a ambient piece. So it's hard. I can't really grab onto something there, obviously, besides the fact that it has a certain sound, right? And it sounds tense and it sounds scary and ominous and what have you. But it's not a piece that necessarily, other than creating a mood, it doesn't necessarily want or require a feeling of like an explanation of why it sounds the way it sounds. Besides, essentially, it's just moving different kinds of instruments around and synthesize sounds and creating through those a sense of dread more than anything. The next track is Escape, Evade, Eat, Evolve, and I'll be stopping and starting about 3 times in this piece. See, this is cool. So why is this so amazing? I mean, like, that's actually really, really dope. And I think part of the reason why it works so well is because the percussion is something you can feel and hear. It uses like a real instrumentation. What it sounds like is if you take a snare drum or any drum and then you hit the rim, it produces this kind of sound. And this is actually really satisfying, I think, because it has an organic element to it. So it feels like it's something tangible that we can understand because we understand that the sound sounds human. The synthesized aspects of it, I think, kind of pull me away from it a little tiny bit. But what I would say is a piece like this, like there's automatic tension again because it's just sheer percussion. Now you get bow down, which I think is really, really evocative. And it does bring a sense of stress to it, doesn't it? Most of these pieces do, but I'm enjoying this much more than some of the others because of the fact that it's something that I can grasp onto, which is something that a lot of us, I think, require. Is a feeling of understanding or knowledge of a piece of music. Like we may not be able to like pinpoint exactly what something is or how something works or why something is the way it is, but this particular piece of music has that percussive drive that isn't synthesized, which I think really takes it to the next level personally. I'll stop again and say that there's actually a primality about this piece that really, really lends itself to elevating it too, because the percussion, obviously we had the roar in there. The percussion opens up the idea of animalistic rage, and that kind of comes across obviously with the roar. But you can imagine being stalked or hunted or preyed upon by some sort of massive beast or what have you, that would be prowling in the night or hunting you, and the percussion is really like that tension or firing at this thing and so on and so forth, right? See, and in here you hear a change, which is kind of nice because it goes from being hunted to sort of resetting. And I mean, the title is Escape, Evade, Eat, Evolve. And in here is where you hear the big shift, where all of a sudden the sort of the pursuit or the reasoning for hunting, in the case of these monsters that you're fighting, when you're the character, the player of choosing to become the monster. Here you hear like a change in tactic, which I think is very interesting. Yeah, like that's very cool. Yeah, I really quite like that piece. It really evolved and added a layer of intensity, even though it was pretty like still at the same time. It was really like a thought provoking piece where it made you want to contemplate why things are happening the way they are. Right? Okay. There's a hold on one sec. All right, we have some time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play these tracks, and I want to actually watch some gameplay footage for a while, because I'm actually intrigued and wanted to see some stuff. So this is Gear Up. Cool. This reminds me of the Jason Friday the 13th game very much. Obviously, there's some similarities to Dead by Daylight and stuff, of course. His work on Dead Space is very good. Damn, that dude got eviscerated. The hits are very, very pronounced, which is very cool. The hits are very cool when they're pronounced. There's a lot of hitting in this, very percussive. It has an experimental energy to it too, which is really cool. Again, kind of underrated in the sense that, like, it's not mixes that happen really frequently. Damn, Kraken's OP. So this track we're on right now is wah, wah. Hunter becomes the hunted. When you evolve and become bigger. I see. Oh, you shed. Oh, wow. Shifted again. See, like, even that's extremely listenable because of the pulse. Whereas, like, ambient music is not necessarily great out of context, but when there's a pulse and a drive, you're more likely to be able to tune into it. It can be good for the gym or other places where you're kind of getting adrenaline up. But this is interesting. This is a pretty, like, this is also very hefty. Kraken's waiting on its prey here. Interesting. Wow, laid in waiting and then just hopped over them. Always got an ominous quality of it though, you know? Even that. Even that's at consistent moments, right? You can actually count out. Oh, well, that time it didn't do it. Okay. You know what I mean? You can hear kind of a consistency in that, which makes it it pulls back in tempo. It makes it a little easier to hold on to. Interesting track there. Eliminate the hostile threat. Let's check out some more gameplay here. Goliath. See, adrenaline. There's a lot of back and forth. And I think it kind of makes sense, right? There's a bit of constant pulling and pushing, where you think it's going to go somewhere and be a more consistent piece, but it ends up actually dialing back. And to my ear, it's not exactly pleasurable, only because I'm not like physically engaging with the gameplay. And I think this is one of those soundtracks that really benefits from the beauty of a stark world as we're seeing on the screen. Like even just this gameplay alone, with this in the background, sort of lifts it off of the metaphorical page, if you will, the sound. It's not to say that it's bad music, it's not, but I think it's one of these games, and especially with ambient tracks, usually there's a benefit to the contextual experience, of the gameplay itself. But like even this music right here, with an evolving like this, insane, like super kind of intense and scary. Also the fact that the monster can see the enemies on screen, like there's actually like the inability to be anonymous is really quite tension inducing. Like you could be taken out if you're not careful, which is cool to see. So much distortion, so much crunch. And I think, again, the distortion leans itself more towards the monster and more towards the fact that this is a dangerous situation for the hunters. Those two things can be the true at the same time, and it does take a lot of effort and skill to create a sound that isn't heavily leaning towards one or the other. See, now again, more pulsation. And literally, that's a very oppressive sound, and consistently here we've been oppressed by the different sounds and the different sort of the way that the pieces are written and composed. It's interesting to hear this mishmash. Let's check out Animal Farm. Again, very heavy percussive. Even their rhythm. You hear that? And that again helps that intensity. Now it sounds like breath. It sounds like monstrous, and it's like it's sort of breathing to life and glowing eyes in the dark, what have you. Natural pickup, kind of that's that prey quality to it. Like, this is a monster's track for sure. Down, 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 hit. Visceral stuff. There too, we still have that. Boom, 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 shop, boom, boom, boom. You know, it takes a lot of skill. In truth, it takes a lot of skill to create a soundtrack like this. And the thing is, a lot of people aren't even going to really pay attention to it or really provide any sort of appreciation for it because of the fact that it's just not something that is going to be regularly listened to like for funsies. But it serves a hugely meaningful purpose when it comes to the game itself. Let's check out Catcher in the Sky. Yeah, I am going to check out Suikoden, yep. Probably not on stream though, but yes, I'm starting to slowly work my way through it. It's a PvP. Well, it's what's it called? It's isometric, so it's 4v5 or 4v1. Asymmetric, excuse me. Are you noticing how rhythmic many of these pieces are? There's a constant movement in this. And technically there is a pitch down there. Shumtum. Shumtum. Interesting symbols. I wish I had played it because I really like Rainbow Six has some of my biggest playtime on it. Honestly, Rainbow Six has I have about 447 hours on Rainbow Six. It's really unfortunate that I never got to hop into Evolve. Let's do this. Did the track already end? It did. This is Banshee Mines really work up an appetite. Huh? Oh, cool. I'll keep that in mind. Short and sweet. Oh, wait, no. You know, I think my biggest point of criticism slash thoughts on the work so far, halfway through the soundtrack, is just how amorphous some of them are, and I think for me, I think the way that I like to listen to music is not necessarily this particular kind of music. It's not to say that I'm opposed to ambient music. I'm not. In fact, I quite like many different ambient tracks. Obviously, when something's a little bit more fluid or orchestral, there's like a natural way to follow it that I think lends itself really well to easy listening, and certainly listening to out of context. I think this soundtrack is a little bit challenging to sort of pay attention to, because at times it starts to blur together to the point that it almost doesn't sound like anything. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not just, I don't say that to be harsh, but what I mean to say is that my personal taste doesn't really align with the sci-fi ambience where there's no like sense of direction. Now, I don't mind rhythm and I don't mind forward momentum, and I certainly don't mind listening to this and experiencing it, but it's the type of thing where, again, I think like when we listen to songs in a vacuum, that's perfectly acceptable and important. I think it's a really valuable thing to do. But there's something that happens when we listen to a piece in its intended setting, where we get the sense of gravitas and the sense of space and scope and size and ambition and idea. That said, what's really incredible and what should be praised is the fact that, you know, Jason Graves, I mean, yes, maybe Jason was working, you know, with the game in front of him or what have you, and trying to come up with ideas and things, but like to create this soundscape truly out of nothing. I mean, nothing, you know, yes, this style exists, but it's not to say that the game, games like this had soundtracks that were similar or what have you. You know, every time a composer does something, they're sort of innovating in their own way. And so I think that part should be celebrated. Now, whether or not it fits personal taste, that's a separate discussion. But I mean, the act of composition is not one that should be taken lightly, because ultimately composition is really difficult, even when you're really good at it. Writer's block, you know, trying to create imagery through sound. I mean, this stuff's really difficult. The problem is when we listen to it in a row like this, it tends to, you know, you tend to get the scope of the sound really well. And that can be good and bad, you know? So I have a bad feeling about this. I automatically like this more because of its forward momentum, because that's something to glom onto. There's some really interesting, even right there, 10 seconds in, there's like 2 shifts. I like that. And that's cool because you get some real nice cello. Yeah, you get some nice cello accents. It's actually like playing right off the top of the cello there. It's kind of cool. Oh, it's fine. stop really quickly and just point out what I like about this track actually is that we have a cello in here, and the cello, we're playing on the very tip of the string, the bow, and that's really interesting because it creates a sound of inherent tension, and well, the whole game has had nothing but tension, right? But it plays just a little bit on the bow, so you're not hitting the full like it's like very lightly pressed. And what that does is it creates that. It's really cool. It's a really fun sound, and I think it adds a very nice orchestral horror music can be really, really, really evocative. And I think that this is really cool. It adds a layer of like, holy shit, what do we do? You know what I mean? And I think that works extremely well. You can even hear it. Some nice dynamics in there as well, some crescendo and decrescendo that's happening, kind of swells, which really work to add a layer of tension in that sound, quite a bit actually, which is quite cool. One other thing I'd also like to commend Jason for is not making tracks that are excessively long. Now they may loop in game, but here we have ourselves a 2-minute track, and it's 2 minutes. You don't have to worry about a triple loop, a quadruple loop. Oh, it's looping. It's really nice when something's really concise and it does what it's just doing what it's going to do, and then it kind of moves on. You know what I mean? Okay, begin the beguine. Pretty cool to see it fully, well, not a fully, but to see the process of evolving and you know, how terrifying a fully evolved monster could actually probably look like if you weren't careful. All right, the next track up is Rock Throw Fire Breath Charge, and I'll be stopping about 2 or 3 times on this one. Yeah, I mean, right there is a perfect place to just stop and highlight how powerful the accentation is and how intense it can drive forward. The percussion hits in that in particular are extremely effective. Extremely effective at building a sense of stress and discomfort, and I think which is, I mean, the theme of the entire live stream really. But what I like about that is that those hits are actually like the emotional anchor for keeping us in a state of distress. And I think in this particular case, it really works really well. It's quite exciting when the tempo picks up as it does. Like, this feels like chase music, doesn't it? It feels like music where you're, looking behind you as you're running in the opposite direction or having to stand your ground. This comes through as a stressor, and I think it works really well. There's a lot of emphasis on heavy hits on, I believe, on strong beats. So like on a 1 or a 2, a 1 or a 3, and so on and so forth. It's really neat how that's hitting, There's a really neat hidden thing happening in here that I want to stop and talk about really quickly. There's this, so we have the hits, which are a predominant force, bam, ticka, ba, da, dum, dum, ticka, da. But then you also have this wonderful, very subtle juxtaposition of ba, just an accent, ba, dum, ticka, da, dum, dum, ticka, ha. And I think that the mixture of the sustained sort of held note coupled by the bum ba 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 bum bum ba ba bum is really, really effective at producing a sense of heightened stress, right? You don't need me to tell you that. Like, that's obvious, right? If you have something that's sustained mixed in with a sharp rhythm underneath, you're inherently going to have two diametrically opposed ideas coming together in music, right? It's really cool when that happens because it's almost like your ear wants to figure out where to tune in, number one. And number two, there's automatically a heightened sense of like, holy shit, what? Oh no. You know what I mean? Like there's a real tension in that. And all of these tracks have showcased some degree of tension or another, or so like a fear or building up or whatever other, descriptor word you want to use. But in this particular case, I really appreciate the sustaining upper register combined with the percussion underneath. And I felt like stopping and pointing that out. I'll stop one more time, probably later in the track. Appreciate this increase in tempo. Some scream in the background. Yeah, it's interesting how in this piece there's a couple. Obviously, it's a big stressful moment in the composition in the soundtrack, and in this particular case is cool because the screams really lend themselves to the idea of like the tension in that. But also there's a moment where we actually pivot and almost come to a stop before we pick back up again. And I think like what's really interesting to me about that is that it's clearly a theme of like offense and defense. And while it is consistent, it's in that percussion and what have you, there's also some shifts that occur because, we kind of have to stay nimble. Definitely would be like the perfect track for, pursuing or being hunted. And I think it probably does play during moments of battle against, the players. Ultimate Machismo. Why don't we use the classic word they use for movie music, score, for video games also? I don't know. I don't know why we call it video game soundtracks versus, we still call movies soundtracks. Scores, don't forget that the score is the sheet music. And I think maybe one of the things that happens a lot is that video game, this pure conjecture, I have no actual idea. Video games tend to be done digitally. And so there's no score. They're just done digitally. So like there's not necessarily a score to reference. Most things are digital. Whereas like movie scores are, soundtracks written out. You know what I mean? But at the same time, why do we call a song for a single person a song? In an opera, we call it an aria. Why is it called an aria? What? There's no difference. So great question. You're welcome. I like this percussion quite a bit. Ooh, I would have definitely played as Wraith. That's my playstyle right there. Yeah, exactly. Doom, doom, doom. Crazy crescendo there. Very cool. I appreciated the ending very much of that piece. Lord of the Heides. Cool. Cool, cool. Hey, Dark Lord, Mommy's Very Angry is on a video coming out at the end of this week with a bunch of other Patreon tracks. Do you still want a deep analysis here, or do you want to just wait for that? Because I literally have it filmed, so it's up to you. Let's check out Engage the Monster Cloaking Device. Yep. Up to you. Okay, so I won't analyze it. Damn, look at its back. Holy shit. I'd probably enjoy Goliath too. Hear me roar? Sure. Quite a bit of a ticking pulsation in that sound, which is quite cool. Dum, dum, dum. Dum, 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 right? You could make the assumption that you're hearing the monster's heartbeat and the cloaking device is going off or something, you know. It's definitely possible. The monster's cloaked and its heart is beating in the process or something, whatever. Like, you can make up any sort of story you want. Okay, Fissure F for the win. It is incredible to me how much these tracks must work incredibly well in context, but out of context, they end up sounding sort of blurred together and lacking in a identity, which is crazy because like that sounds harsher than I mean it. I don't even mean it harshly, but just when you listen to them in repetition, they all tend to sort of blur together with some extenuating differences. But by and by, they start to mush together, which is really interesting. But that being said, like they all have this terrific pulsation within them that I think really sells the like heart pounding experience of playing the game, right? And that's ultimately like the scope. Let's break down Hear Me Roar, and then we'll just go through the final 6 songs or the final 7 songs, just listening to each of them. Here we go. Yeah, but even right here, I mean, it's a minute long, right? So the first part of this, so we have this constant heartbeat thing. I think the heartbeat thing is really fascinating because the heartbeat provides many different kind of perspectives, right? On the one hand, it creates a feeling of distress. On the other hand, it creates a feeling of fear. And on the other hand, even beyond that, is that it creates a sense of merging the monster with the humans, because both have functioning hearts, both are beating, both are tense, both are nervous, both are fearful. And so what the consistent heartbeat does is it kind of connects the players, which I think is really interesting and a really fun musical gesture as well. Yeah, and that little moment right there is absolutely a moment of clash. Really a sense of a connection moment there. Also really like the little accents because it's like turning the corner and seeing the thing and then being head on face to face to it, right? and then a real bum, bum, sort of it pitters out, but there's a bit of a resolute ending. Looks like meat's back on the menu. I would play Gorgon. 1000%. Oh yeah. Yeah, and a lot of these tracks ultimately, like, I think like the main scope of most of these tracks is that feeling of like hunting and being hunted and so on and so forth. Though I do feel like it kind of leans a little bit towards hunting. Oh, you were in first person as a hunter. Wow, that's crazy how different that looks. The record scratch in this is really interesting. Seems like it would be really hard to balance. On the scent. Whoa. How much time are you even spending, like, not engaging? Because it feels like... I wonder how much time you're spending, like, exploring. Monster scared birds. Interesting. Rescue Dawn. Wow. Crazy. It was a... I see. Interesting. Well, so what do you think of this soundtrack? Obviously, if you're in this stream, you like this soundtrack, or at least like and appreciate the game. So, like, what's your perspective of the soundtrack? What are you taking away from listening to this in succession? What are you taking away from listening to it in a row? What sort of thoughts come to your mind as you listen to this? Defend at all costs. I think it's one of those games where if the music pulls too much attention, it actually would do the game a disservice. Yeah. A monster, yeah, totally. A monster that evolves and grows in power the more time that goes on, and you have to do it as fast as possible. Yeah, 1,000,000% would be amazing in Monster Hunter. I mean, I think more than anything, you know, the final two tracks, the thoughts that I'll leave you with while we listen to Slaughterhouse 6 and Tracking Something Big, is the terrific fact that while I don't necessarily think that this doesn't really fit my aesthetic for what I like in a soundtrack. I don't think that it harms it in any way. Oh, thanks, Aiden. Yes, I should. Thank you very much. I'll get on it as soon as I can. I've been really swamped. You know, I think that listening to this in a vacuum definitely does it a disservice. I think a lot of these end up morphing together, and you know, obviously, Dark Lord, I thank you for supporting the Patreon. So please don't. It's not a personal. It's not personal, of course. I have a feeling that this music is both forgettable and memorable at the same time. And what I mean to say is that I don't think that that's an offense to Jason either, because I think Jason's a very, very talented composer. This music is interesting because it does do a good job of creating a sense of distress, right? That's its purpose. It's not here for easy listening. It's not here for us to vibe to it and like enjoy it, right? It's really not its purpose. And so, you know, whether or not it fits for like a sit down, like evening listening party, no, I don't think it really serves or works very well. But do I think that it's worth pointing out and like talking about and like maybe like looking at with like a little bit of a lens on it? Yeah, of course. So many pieces of music outlive games, and this is a prime example. Now, you may not listen to this in your spare time, and that's okay. Like, the fact of the matter is that like this moment showcases that like the game, unless you find a specific way to play it, you can't. You know, this type of game actually would go really well on a, you know, like a no longer existing game, like video, right? Or like a game that no longer exists, or you know, rarest games, because you literally can't play it unless you try to figure out how to play it. You know, there's a saying, music outlives the game, and I think in this particular case, that's a very prime example of it. You know, I think it was really, really, really fun to explore this, and at the very least, like, have an understanding of like, okay, well, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, here's why this music works, here's why I really appreciate the heartbeat, here's why I appreciate the whatever. Oh, thank you, thanks so much, Darko. I appreciate that. You didn't have to do that. You already did so much for this. Thank you very much. So thank you. So all that to say, like, it's a really amazing thing, and a level 3 hype train, Jesus. Thank you. And I appreciate it for that very fact. Now, will I listen to this in the car? No, I won't. But do I feel like I have learned something? Yeah, I do. Let's check out Slaughterhouse 6 and Tracking Something Big. I appreciate that. little crazy sound effect on the back end there. And tracking something big. Ew, that hurts my ears. Did not like that. That made me uncomfortable. The subway car. That's fantastic. I think something that Jason Graves does really well, and we can hear that in his own soundtrack to Dead Space as a prime example, is being able to take a sound that is he's able to mold and combine sounds and create the senses of discomfort. And what we just listened to is essentially 27 tracks of just discomfort and tension and fear and you know, terror, not in a big way, but in a pretty subtle way, that doesn't overstay its welcome, doesn't detract from gameplay, and creates a heightened level of tension. And I think that's really the statement in 27 tracks. Like, you can't really get much more complicated than, you're much more simple than that. These tracks all exude a degree of tension, and they exude it and lean into it in a very good and important and big way. And for that regard, I think that it was worth experiencing. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful for all of you that decided to come out and check out this really interesting and, I mean, at this point, kind of an obscure soundtrack, really, because it really doesn't ever get talked about. In fact, the only person I've ever heard talk about it is Dark Lord, by asking for it on the channel. I really appreciate, of course, the support there from Dark Lord. Thank you for supporting that highest Patreon tier. Of course, this was a OST listen supported by you. Next week, we'll be checking out Thymesia, the Thymesia OST, which is a Souls-like that I've heard is pretty good. After that, next month, we'll be checking out it's actually an amazing soundtrack from Planetary Annihilation for you RTS fans. And if I recall correctly, that is John Everest, who is very, very, very good. With that, there is one more spot at that upper tier if that's something that interests you. If not, no big deal. I figured I might as well mention it. I really appreciate being able to listen to soundtracks that are different than I would normally listen to. I may not like it, but I certainly can appreciate it. And in this particular case, I feel like I learned a lot about ambient music, which is a corner of the video game sphere that I really don't pay attention to as much as I should, because I naturally gravitate towards melodic music. That's just an inherent quality of who I am due to my background with opera, which is all melodic, of course. There's no such thing as ambient. Well, actually, that's not true, but there is ambient music, but predominantly it's not that. Yeah, my pleasure. Hey, Ulysses, what's up? Hey, Marco, I just discovered your content not long ago. That's great. Thank you. I saw moments of the Death Stranding 2 trailer. Yeah, Ludwig is really, really phenomenal. Crosscode is an amazing soundtrack. Unfortunately, super copyright unfriendly, which really sucks. So I am not able to feature Crosscode as much as I would like it, or at all, due to just the way the copyright law goes for that particular soundtrack. But I'm a big fan. There's some really good pieces in there. So anyway, with all that being said, I just wanted to say thank you to Dark Lord again. And I will see all of you, if you're interested, tomorrow for Monster Hunter Rise. We are back on the Monster Hunter train, this time going backwards to Rise, continuing my playthrough slowly to finish up Rise and to go into Sunbreak. If that's interesting to you, that will be tomorrow and Wednesday. So hope to see you for those live streams. I love my game time. Thursday will be a live stream where I'll be filming some videos. I have about 50 videos that I've got now that I'm heading into the new year with, into the summer. Lots to film, lots to talk about. Also, a surprise visit by Sonic Unleashed. If Sonic Unleashed is something you enjoy, the PC update that was released and created by that person, I have to do some research, changed one of the things about Sonic Unleashed that made it terrible, and now it's basically a 10 out of 10 Sonic game. So we'll be checking that out Thursday as well. Thanks a ton, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Be well, and I will talk to you soon.